Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your Christmas day so far. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, hope you're having a fantastic day regardless. This is the one day of the year that I tend to try and take off of making videos. So this is a pre-recorded Christmas edition of Power Rankings normal service. Will resume tomorrow. Perfect time to do it really, with all 12 teams recently becoming clear. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hitting the like button is the best thing you can do. Tell this channel reach new people and give the channel a Christmas gift. Having the big red button as well to bolster those numbers, baby. So we're going to dive into these power rankings today. Going to give my thoughts based on last season, but also the potentially these teams going forwards into this year as well. Definitely want to give some hot takes and some spicy stuff in there as well, but want to make this hopefully somewhat reasonable as to what I expect this season to look like, because of course, less than a month from now, the season officially begins at the Kickoff Classic. Thankfully, this year there's actually an event and a winner of this event, as opposed to last year where it was just kickoff games before the CDL started in February. So better, I think, this time around, and well, hopefully these power rankings might well play out to some degree, at least in terms of how the seedings and the results of these tournaments are, of course, going to work. Before we dive into the kind of tier list maker that I'm going to go through, wanted to just mention the results, of course, from last year, because this, of course, does have some impact on what's happening this season. Dallas and OpTic are now combined into the same roster, which was, of course, quite the surprise this offseason, so you would imagine, realistically, that the tier list is going to look somewhat similar to, well, how these rankings ended up from last year, and certainly, especially the teams that have stuck together in FaZe, Toronto, Minnesota, Rokkr, for example, will have to consider them to at least some degree based on their performances last year, especially FaZe leading it up with 525 points. I mean, 34 and 7, that is just ridiculous. But in fairness to Ultra, when they really got going from stage 2 onwards, especially from the major onwards, they were a force very much equivalent at times to Atlanta FaZe in terms of how they finished off their season. Also, this in terms of the World Championship results, Toronto came second in this one as well. It was Dallas third, Minnesota, Rokkr fourth, OpTic and New York sharing fifth, sixth, and of course that Mutineers and LA Thieves who had to start in the lower bracket over there. But yes, Toronto, after making their roster changes going into stage 2, they finished stage 2 in first place. They then finished third, second, and second through the rest of the season. So they definitely have to be right up there. And these are the rosters for this year. So I'll just pause this. I'll probably refer back to this as the video goes on. But the Boston team that we don't know is officially confirmed, at least as of now, is Methods, TJ, Nero, and Capsidel. And just because of how well they've been playing seemingly in scrims the last several days, we can very well assume that's probably going to be the roster going into next season. Let's dive then into the tier list. So I wanted to do this as tiers. I'm going to try and order them within the tier itself, but I think tiers is generally better than doing it well, another way. So this was created on Tier Maker by Jonas. I changed up a couple of things in terms of how things are being described here on the left hand side, and well, let's just dive into things. I'll start with the S tier, I'll then go down to the bottom, and we'll work our way back up again. So I think honestly FaZe has to be S tier, no doubt about it. Of course, I'm going to be basing this to some degree on how scrims have looked so far in this game, based on, you know, that's pretty much the only thing we have to go off, at least scrims and early tournaments and this type of stuff, and general feeling about the game. My perception is FaZe don't like this game quite as much as they did Cold War. Frankly, I think that's probably a similar feeling throughout the entirety of the community, but I think that may have some impact on how well, how they treat the game over time. Toronto have to be there or thereabouts as well. So yes, FaZe are the champions. They've got to go in here as the number 1 seeds. There's just no doubt about it. Some people maybe wouldn't put Toronto right up here alongside FaZe. I think they still deserve it. So far in this game, from the little bit that I've seen, they seem to be very good. I think scrims have been going pretty well for them. It's obviously tough to say, we don't get to see all that much, but just based on where FaZe were last year, and as I say, Toronto's finished the season first, third, second, they're right up there with FaZe. They lost the World Championship Grand Final to them. They beat them in stage 2. They really were there and thereabouts. The series they played up against FaZe were generally pretty fantastic, and I think they're really one of the teams that has a realistic opportunity of taking down FaZe to be the dominant team this season. If FaZe aren't quite as good as they were last year, they don't enjoy the game quite as much, maybe they aren't quite as good as this game as they were at Cold War, Toronto could be the team to step into that mantle, right? I think they certainly have the potential to do so. Having them in the kind of second seed, to me, still makes sense based on how last year went. Now, I'm also going to put another team here in this S tier. Now, I think some people would put them down in the other tier, but just based on at least, well, the talent on paper, but also their performances early part of this game, it does make sense to me, I think, to put OpTic Texas in this tier as well, because I think straight off the rip, they should well be championship contenders right up there at the top with some of these guys. Obviously, we've seen them play up against FaZe in practice the last few days, and it's been looking pretty good between them. Obviously, actually generally getting the better of FaZe as of late, not like that means all that much. But on paper, you've got Shotzzy, you've got Scump as your SMG duo. If you're trying to build a dominant roster, Shotzzy was the number 1 guy you've got to pick up in the entire league to try and build a team that's going to take down FaZe. They've got Shotzzy, they've got Scump there as well, who's been looking super good so far in this game as well, and seems to have so much more left in the tank as well. Also, in terms of the leadership position, of course, Scump's going to provide something in that category, but Illy is also very much there. He's got so much chemistry with Dashy from before, also gets along great with Shotzzy as well. So I think on paper, the OpTic team is very nasty, frankly. lately, and they've been looking really good in the early part of this game as well. So I really think that OpTic probably should be in this category. I think they're probably just a tier above the other squads that aren't FaZe and Ultra. So I'm going to put OpTic there third for now, just because it's an unproven squad, right? We know that FaZe and Ultra have what it takes to win events. We don't know what OpTic Texas have in the locker here, but I'm thinking they should be there or thereabouts with these top teams going into the game. And generally, when the game starts, it's tough to differentiate teams, really. And I mean, any of these three teams I think could be the dominant force when the game kicks off. FaZe are the most likely for sure, but I think OpTic and Toronto certainly have potential to be there or thereabouts. We'll go down to the bottom now, because I wanted to do that what I called the Paris tier, because Paris is going to go in here. I feel bad really for the Paris guys. I mean, we can look at the roster right here of Temp, John, Decimate, and Fellow. Like, I mean, look, they're being paid minimum salary. Paris aren't really giving an attempt to actually make this team competitive, and it's just going to be one of those teams. They can win a series. They have the talent to do so. They have some solid players on the roster that are going to perform decently from time to time, but if they win a series, they're probably going to lose the next 2 or 3 in a row. I just can't see them making any sort of run at a major. That's the thing. Pretty much all of these teams, there's so much competition in this league that all of these rosters, I think, at some point have the potential to make a top 4, maybe push for a grand final, maybe, who knows. But at Paris, I just don't see that ever happening. There's a realistic chance they never even make a major this year, and that's why I think their roster, once again, is just a step below the other teams. They don't have really any players on their roster that you think, okay, wow, they can really take over and win the team a series, but it's probably just not going to happen. So Paris, to me, get their own tier. I probably would have put Mutineers in that tier as well, but they now go into the mid-best tier, because I think they got somewhat better with this acquisition of Vivid. I still don't like their roster, quite honestly. We can see right here, Sky's Awakening, Dave, Paddy, and Vivid. So they did used to have Havoc in here, and I thought that Havoc and Awakening as your SMG duo is just going to be nowhere near competitive enough. Now with Vivid in there, it's got a little bit better. I think that Awakening on the SMG is still a risk, and Skies and Dave Paddy on the ARs, how is that going to work, right? Like, Awakening, can he actually run an SMG at a very high level in this title? Seems like online they've been pretty good so far. Does that translate, especially when they go to LAN? I can't really see them getting particularly much better than a top 6 in a LAN environment. I think they can make it to the majors, but getting much better than that is going to be tough. So I just don't see this team being a dominant force. I think if anything, they're going to be kind of like last year, where they have some decent results, they take down some decent squads, but they just can't put some consistency together. Vivid, I think, gives them a bit more potential, but I'm still, the roles on this team just make so little sense, really, at least from an outside perspective. I can't see this team being particularly good. The other squad I want to put in this mid-best bracket is, well, the NRG squad as it's described here, but of course, this is, the Boston team, so it's formerly the NRG spot, now bought out by Boston. So they're going to go here as well, this Methods, TJ, Capsule, and Nero team. So far in scrims, they've been looking pretty damn good, but of course, scrims don't tell the entire story. I can't imagine that this team has quite the firepower to really take on the top squads on a consistent basis. I think they're a similar team to Florida. They might get some good upset results. I can't see them pushing much further than a top 6 in a particular major. They might sneak a result up better than that. Of course, these young guys have potential as well. They could really turn into a dominant force here, but TJ is going to have to be a fantastic SMG player, and Methods is going to need to be a really good AR, rather than just kind of like an average middle of the pack AR that he has been the last couple of years, if this team wants to take things to the next level. So I think that's fair enough, really, for this Boston squad. They were last into the league picking up these guys. Anything better than where I've put them here, to be honest, would be a massive impressive result, really, given the pickings that they had to choose from the league they found themselves in. So we now have 6 teams remaining. I'm going to do 3 in potential and 3 in the title contenders. We'll start with title contenders, actually, because the 4th spot I kind of want to give to the New York Subliners. We've got to, I mean, look, this team on paper is nasty. Crimsix, Clayster, Neptune, and Hydra. This team, it should be absolutely disgusting. I think that at the start of the year, it might take this team a little bit of time to get into gear. But when things really get up and running, especially when it comes down to like stage 3, stage 4, when the World Championship is looming, if this team is still together, they should be a dominant force. Like, Neptune and Hydra as an SMG duo is just so deadly, and Crimsix in this game has actually looked pretty damn good so far. I really have a lot of faith in this team. I don't think they're quite at the level of the top 3 guys I put in the S tier, but if there was one other team that I'd put the most money on to win an event this season outside of those top 3, it's probably going to be the Subliners. So that's why I think they deserve this number 4 position. I think that you can never really look past Crim and Clayster to get something done at a big event. So I think in the top of this kind of title contender spot, they could certainly win a championship, maybe not quite as likely to do so as the top 3. I think New York probably lead the lines on that one. Now, this might be somewhat controversial, but I'm actually going to exclude Minnesota Rokkr from the top title contenders bracket, and I'm going to put the 2 Los Angeles teams instead. I'm not sure which one to put in which order here, quite honestly, because LAG, LA Thieves, they could go either way. I definitely do plan to do a video as well before the season begins, like a most underrated team, most overrated team, and I'm pretty sure one of these will find their way in there. But for now, I'm going to put them in this kind of title contenders bracket. On paper, these teams once again are so good. Like, you look at LA Thieves, Drazah, Kenny, Octane, and Envoy, they've got all the firepower there on paper. Slasher, Gunless, Asim, and Huke, the same thing on the LAG side. My concern concern is, I think, for LAG, especially that if Slasher really doesn't like this game, as it seems a lot of the pros don't right now, like, you know, is the grind going to be there quite from him as it has been in previous years? The same thing really with LA Thieves. That's why I think they're slightly less likely than New York to actually win a championship here, but I still think they should very much be there or thereabouts. They have so much talent on these rosters that it's difficult to put them too much lower down than this, to be honest. So to me, I think LAG, LA Thieves, they do find themselves in this kind of title contenders. They're very similar to me. I think I might just give LAG the favor over it for now, just on how I feel like their roster's meshing and the amount of work these guys are going to put in compared to LA Thieves. I think it might be a bit better for LAG. Also, I think LA Thieves are based out of LA as well, so might not be so good for the internet side. Then we have 3 teams remaining. These 3 teams are going to slot into the kind of potential tier. I think I'm going to go Surge and then Ravens here. So this might be somewhat of a surprise, but I'm putting Minnesota Rokkr only down here in the kind of, 7th position in my power rankings. Of course, they did win an event last year. They came 4th at the World Championship, but I still do have my concerns about this roster. I'm not sure how they'll do in the hard points last year. It was a bit of a struggle for them. I think that Standy obviously was a fantastic player last year, and still a lot of potential, but online, I don't think they're quite as good. On LAN, they seem to actually have some good performances towards the end of the season, but online, they suffer a little bit. That, of course, is very important. I also think that this is probably the team that's fell down the most, just based on other teams improving. All these other rosters, I think, have got better, right, above them, and Minnesota Rokkr, like, they're just the same team, right? I think they've got worse comparatively to the other squads. I don't think they have as much a chance to win a championship, frankly, as these other squads I've put above them. That's why I'm putting them down here. Potential to do something, but I still feel like they might need some sort of change before the end of the year if they're going to take them back to that top level when they won the Stage 5 Major. Now, the other 2 teams in here are certainly my dark horses for the entire season. These are the squads I'm most excited to keep my eyes on. Seattle Surge have some, incredible talent. This is kind of like the Boston team, but buffed to some degree. I think they've got accuracy, they've got Mack in there, but also Sib and Pred, right? They got the pick of the bunch in terms of the top challenger prospects. Sib from the North American side, Pred from the Australian region, and that's kind of, if anything, like a buffed Nero and Capsidol with accuracy and Mack alongside, TJ and Methods, I suppose, if you want to look at it from that perspective. So Seattle so far in scrims, they've been looking really good. They have a fantastic back-end staff as well behind the team itself. So I think Surge, I'm pretty sure at the start of the year, I don't expect them to come out and be a dominant force, but this is this is potential written all over it, right? If this team meshes and comes together, they can be a dominant force, and I think London are in a very similar boat right now. Really excited about this London team. Picking up guys, once again, that a lot of North American players especially haven't even heard of, frankly. Gizmo, Nasty, Afro. Of course, Afro was dawning last season towards the end of it on the Ravens. Zero alongside them as well, bringing him back in business in that main AR role. Really excited for how this London team is going to do. I think, once again, it's like a Seattle. They might take some time to get together and, really mesh as a squad, but the firepower on this team is very much underrated, and if they can put it all together, this is a team that really can mix things up. So I'm going to put Ravens just behind Seattle for now. So I feel like looking back on it, it does look kind of reasonable at the end of the day. I've got Atlanta FaZe, Toronto OpTic, then I've got New York, Los Angeles, Guerrillas, LA Thieves, then Minnesota, Seattle Surge and Ravens, the Boston team, which is going as NRG right here, but they're now Boston, Florida Mutineers, and the Paris Legion in their own tier at the very bottom. This is somewhat different to what the flank put together a little bit ago, but it's honestly relatively similar. They had Minnesota a bit higher, so maybe some hot takes being thrown around here, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Am I right? Am I wrong? Will I be proved wrong over time? We will have to stay tuned for the season to find out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button. Tell those YouTube gods this is a good video. I just like you should see it as well. And I grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great Christmas, and I will see you next time.